We're counting down 25 things farm women did on Washday in the 1950s that took all day. Long before the quiet hum of an automatic machine, Monday meant a battle that began before sunrise and ended long after dark. Water hauled by the bucket, fires built by hand, and a mountain of laundry that could break a strong back. From lye soap boiled in a copper kettle to bed sheets frozen stiff on the winter line, each task tells a story of grit, pride, and the quiet endurance of women who kept a whole farm family clean on almost nothing. Expect aching arms, scalded hands, and a kind of labor that has all but vanished from American life. Which back-breaking chore tops our list? Let's begin the countdown with number 25. Number 25. Washday began long before the rooster crowed. On most American farms, Monday was wash day fixed by tradition and the old rhyme every girl learned at her mother's knee. A farm wife rose at 4 or 5 in the morning, lit the kitchen stove by lamplight, and started the day's work while her family still slept in the cold dark of the house. There were no shortcuts and no help coming. Before a single garment touched the water, she had to haul, heat, and prepare hours of labor before the real washing even began. Studies of farm life in the early 1950s found that the weekly wash could swallow 12 or 13 hours from start to finish. She knew that if she slept in, the clothes would never dry before nightfall. So she rose in the dark and went to work, the first awake and the last to rest. Number 24. Before running water reached the farmhouse, and in the early 1950s a great many farms still had none, every drop for wash day came by hand. A farm wife carried bucket after bucket from the well, the pump, or the cistern, often 50 gallons or more for a single wash. Each pail weighed better than 40 pounds full, and the walk from pump to kitchen might be made 20 or 30 times before the tub stood ready. The water sloshed over her shoes and froze her knuckles in January, soaked her apron through in July. Oral histories recall young girls sent to the pump before school, small arms trembling under the weight, learning early that water was never free. It was paid for in sweat and sore shoulders, hauled one heavy bucket at a time. By the time the tubs were full, half the morning was already gone, and the wash had not even begun. Number 23. Cold water washed nothing clean, so the next task was heat, and heat meant fire. In the yard or the summer kitchen, the farm wife set a great copper boiler or a black iron kettle over an open flame, feeding it split wood she had often split herself. She tended that fire for hours, adding kindling, coaxing the water toward a rolling boil while smoke stung her eyes and sweat ran down her back, even in cool weather. In summer, the heat was cruel, turning the wash yard into an oven. Diaries from farm country recall the ritual of the fire, lit at dawn and kept roaring until the last load was done. A single wrong gust could scatter embers toward the clothesline or the barn. She watched that fire like a hawk, because without it there was no hot water, and without hot water there was no clean wash for a family of 6 or 8. Number 22. Store soap cost money, and money was scarce, so many farm women made their own from scratch. All year long she saved bacon grease, meat drippings, and rendered fat in a crock by the stove. On soap day, she mixed that fat with lye, the caustic powder that could blister skin in an instant, stirring the dangerous brew in a kettle until it thickened into a pale, harsh paste. Poured into wooden molds and cured for weeks, it hardened into rough bars that could strip grease from the filthiest overalls. Farm wives guarded their own recipes, each swearing hers made the whitest wash. The work was risky, the fumes fierce, and a splash of raw Li left scars. Yet a batch of homemade soap cost almost nothing but effort, and in a house where every penny counted, that saving was reason enough to face the LYE pot again and again. Number 21. Even the soap she bought or made had to be readied before it touched the wash. Hard bars would not dissolve in the tub, so the farm wife shaved them into thin curls with a knife, then melted the flakes into the hot water until they foamed. Some grated a full bar by hand, the way a cook grates cheese, working until her arm ached and the sink filled with pale shavings. Brands like Fell's Naphtha and the big yellow laundry bars were prized on farms for their strength against ground-in dirt. She dissolved the flakes carefully, judging the suds by eye, because too little meant a gray wash and too much wasted precious soap. This small, patient task, done before the first shirt went in, was the difference between clothes that came out bright and clothes that came out streaked. Nothing about Washday was quick, not even the soap. Number 20. Then came the sorting, a job that looked simple and never was. The week's laundry for a farm family made a mountain in the middle of the floor, and every piece had its place in the order of washing. Whites went first into the cleanest, hottest water, then the light colors, then the everyday clothes, and last of all, the filthy work garments that would have ruined a clean load. The farm wife knelt over the heap, shaking out pockets full of nails and string, separating the delicate from the tough, the barely soiled from the caked with mud. A single red sock in the wrong pile could stain a whole load pink. Diaries recall the smell of it, sweat and barn and earth, rising from a week's worth of hard living. Getting the order right saved water, saved soap, and saved her from washing the same load twice. Number 19. Overnight, the toughest clothes waited in the tub for a long, cold soak. The evening before wash day, the farm wife filled a tub with water and set the worst of the laundry, the mud-caked trousers, the grass-stained aprons, the grimy socks, to soak until morning. Loosening the dirt this way meant less scrubbing at the washboard, and less scrubbing meant hands that might still work by nightfall. Some added a handful of washing soda to soften the water and lift the grime. By dawn, the water had turned a murky brown, proof of just how much dirt a farm family carried home each day. She wrung out the sodden clothes and moved them to the wash, the first battle already half won while she slept. It was one of the few tasks that let time do the labor for her, and she never wasted the chance. Number 18. Some stains laughed at plain soap, and for those the farm wife turned to her own pantry pharmacy. Grass stains met a dab of molasses or a scrub with kerosene. Blood was pulled from cloth with cold water and salt, never hot, which would set it forever. Grease surrendered to lard, rubbed in and washed out, or to a paste of chalk. Rust yellowed a white apron until she treated it with lemon juice and laid it in the sun. Perspiration stains, scorch marks, ink from a child's schoolwork, each had its remedy, learned from her mother and traded across the fence with neighbors. Oral histories recall these tricks passed down like heirlooms, written in pencil in the margins of church cookbooks. There was no bottle of miracle spray on a shelf. There was only what stood in the cupboard and what a clever woman knew to do with it. Number 17. Then came the washboard, and with it the real punishment of the day. Load by load, the farm wife bent over a tub and dragged each garment up and down the ridged metal or glass surface, working the soap deep into the fibers. She scrubbed collars, cuffs, and seams by hand, leaning her whole weight into the board until her knuckles reddened and sometimes split. A large wash might mean hours hunched over the tub in the same aching position, her back locked, her fingers pruned and raw. The rhythm was relentless. Scrub and dip, scrub and dip, the water graying with every pass. Farm women recalled hands so chapped by washday that they cracked and bled, healing just in time for the next Monday. This was the heart of the labor, the part no soap could shorten. Clean clothes were earned one hard stroke at a time. Number 16. No garment tested a woman like her husband's work overalls. A farmer came in from the fields and the barn wearing a week of grease, manure, sweat, machine oil, and ground-in dirt, and all of it landed in her wash. Denim overalls were heavy dry and heavier wet, sodden slabs that fought the scrubbing board and strained her arms to lift. She pre-treated the worst spots with kerosene or naphtha soap, scrubbed until her hands burned, and often washed them twice before they came anywhere near clean. Even then, the stains of the farm never fully surrendered. Diaries recall the dread of the overall load, saved for last so it would not foul the rest of the wash. It was the dirtiest, heaviest, most thankless part of the day, and it came every single week, as steady and unforgiving as the work that soiled them. Number 15. Whites were a matter of pride, and pride meant boiling. After scrubbing, the farm wife lifted the sheets, shirts, and pillowcases into the copper boiler and let them roll in the bubbling water, prodding them down with a long wooden stick worn smooth by years of use. Boiling loosened the last of the grime, killed germs, and coaxed a brightness no cold wash could match. Steam filled the kitchen and fogged the windows, and the heavy wet linens had to be fished out scalding hot and wrestled into the rinse. It was hot, dangerous, exhausting work, especially in a summer kitchen already sweltering from the fire. But a farm woman's whites were seen by the whole community on the line each Monday, and a dingy sheet was a quiet shame. So she boiled and stirred and lifted, chasing a whiteness the neighbors would notice and never mention. Number 14. Whiteness alone was not enough, so she reached for the little bottle of bluing. It seemed like magic, and it nearly was. A few drops of Mrs. Stewart's bluing swirled into the rinse water, tinted the whites the faintest blue. And to the eye that touch of blue read as dazzling, snow-bright white. The trick was old and the science simple, a whisper of blue canceling the yellow that age and washing left behind. Too much, and the sheets came out streaked and sky-colored, a mistake the neighbors would spot from the road. So she measured by instinct, a drop at a time, judging the shade in the tub like an artist. Farm women prized their bluing and guarded the bottle. It cost only pennies, but did what no scrubbing could, sending the family's linens onto the line glowing white, the proof of a Monday well spent for all the county to admire. Number 13. For collars, cuffs, aprons, and Sunday best, the last step was starch, and starching was an art of its own. The farm wife cooked up a pot of starch from a box of Argo, or from plain flour and water, stirring it smooth over the stove until it thickened. Then she dipped shirt collars, tablecloths, and pinafores into the warm, sticky bath, wringing out just enough so the fabric would dry crisp and smooth. Heavy starch for a husband's church collar, light starch for a little girl's dress, each judged by feel. Done right, a limp cotton apron came off the line, stiff as new and ready for the iron. Done wrong, it dried in cardboard sheets or flaked into powder. Diaries recall the pride of a crisply starched Sunday shirt, the mark of a household that had itself together. It was one more careful chore in a day already overflowing with them. Number 12. Between the scrubbing and the line came the rinsing, and rinsing was never just once. Soap left in the cloth turned yellow and irritated the skin, so the farm wife pulled each garment through 2 or even 3 separate tubs of clean water, swishing and lifting until the water ran clear and the last suds were gone. The final rinse often carried the bluing or a splash of vinegar to brighten and soften. Each tub had to be filled and emptied by hand. More water hauled, more water carried out, the whole cycle doubling and tripling the labor she had already spent. Heavy, wet sheets grew heavier with every dip, and lifting them from tub to tub soaked her sleeves to the shoulder. It was tedious, endless, arm-numbing work with nothing clever about it, just water and repetition. But skip it, and every clean thing came out stiff, gray, and streaked with soap. Number 11. If the farm was lucky enough to own a wringer washer, it was both a blessing and a menace. Many rural homes still had no electricity for it, so the machine ran off a gasoline engine, a little Maytag motor that had to be started with a kick and vented out the window, coughing and chugging through the wash. It saved hours of scrubbing, but the wringer itself, 2 hard rollers that squeezed the water from the clothes, was famously dangerous. A sleeve, an apron string, or a distracted hand could be caught and drawn in before she could blink. Farm women traded warnings about fingers, hands, and long hair pulled into the rollers, and nearly every family had a story. She fed each garment through carefully, one eye always on her own hands. The machine made Washday faster, but it never once made it safe. Number 10. On a farm with babies, and most had them, Washday meant the diapers, and the diapers were a chore unto themselves. There were no throwaways, only cloth, and a household with an infant might go through dozens in a week. The farm wife scraped them, soaked them in a covered pail, then boiled them hard on the stove to kill the germs before scrubbing each one by hand. She rinsed them again and again until the water ran clean, because a diaper left with soap or worse would blister a baby's skin raw. Hung in a snowy row on the line, clean diapers were the endless, invisible work of motherhood made visible. Oral histories recall the smell, the boiling, the sheer number of them, week after week, year after year. Long before a child could walk, its mother's Mondays already belonged to that steaming pail. Number 9. A farm wife washed things a city woman never dreamed of because the farm itself came inside on cloth. There were the milk strainer cloths, stained and soured, that filtered the morning milking and had to be spotless to keep the family from sickness. There were the cheesecloths, the butter muslins, the cream separator rags, all of them fouled with dairy and demanding a scalding wash and a boil of their own. Feed sacks, once emptied, were washed and saved, their printed cotton destined to become dresses, aprons, and pillowcases. Egg-stained aprons, garden-soiled work gloves, the barn rags, all landed in her tubs. These were chores no rhyme ever mentioned, the hidden extra loads that turned a farm woman's Monday into something far longer than a townswoman's. The farm never stopped producing, and everything it produced, sooner or later, came to her wash water. Number 8. Nothing on a farm was wasted, and that included the wash water itself. When the last garment was wrung and hung, the farm wife did not simply pour those precious tubs down a drain. That gray, soapy water, heated and hauled at such cost, was carried out and put to a second life. She scrubbed the kitchen floor with it, swabbed the porch steps, and sloshed it across the outhouse boards. What was left went on to the flower beds or the kitchen garden, the mild suds even helping keep pests off the plants. In a house where every bucket meant a trip to the pump, throwing water away was almost a sin. Diaries recall the second washing of a whole day, floors and porches scoured with the leftovers, the labor stretched to its last drop. Only when the tubs were truly empty and useful had every ounce finally earned its keep. Number 7. Winter did not cancel wash day, it only made it crueler. The family still needed clean clothes when the thermometer dropped below zero, so the farm wife washed all the same, then carried the wet load out into a frozen world. The clothes froze on the line almost the moment they were pinned, sheets stiffening into pale boards, long johns hardening into the shape of a scarecrow. She hung them anyway, letting the cold and wind slowly draw the moisture out in a strange, freeze-dried way, then brought the crackling, ice-hard garments inside to finish drying by the stove. Her fingers went numb around the clothespins, and wet cloth stuck to bare skin. Oral histories recall carrying in armfuls of frozen laundry stiff as lumber, propping frozen overalls in the corner to thaw. Summer or winter, the wash went out, because a farm family's clean clothes waited for no season. Number 6. At last came the line, and hanging the wash was a craft with rules of its own. The farm wife wiped the line clean, filled her apron pocket with wooden pins, and hung each piece in its proper order and place. Sheets doubled over for strength, shirts by the tail so the collars stayed smooth, socks in pairs, the whole arrangement neat as a soldier's bunk. There was pride in it, and judgment too. A well-hung line was the badge of a good housekeeper, and neighbors driving past read a woman's whole character in the whiteness of her wash and the order of her line. A gray sheet or a sloppy row invited quiet talk. So she stretched and pinned in the wind, hundreds of pieces, arms overhead, until her shoulders burned, sending the family's clean laundry snapping in the breeze for the entire community to see and to weigh. Number 5. Long before the ironing came the sprinkling, because bone-dry cotton could not be pressed smooth. Once the wash was dry, the farm wife took it back down, dipped her fingers in a bowl of water, and flicked droplets across each garment, or shook water from a bottle capped with a sprinkler top. Then she rolled each dampened piece tight, packed them all into a basket, and covered it with a towel to let the moisture spread evenly through the fibers overnight. By morning, every shirt and pillowcase was perfectly, uniformly damp, ready to take a crease under the iron. Skip this step, and the wrinkles would not surrender, no matter how hot the iron. It was a small, patient, almost tender task at the end of a brutal day, the quiet bridge between Monday's wash and Tuesday's ironing, and no experienced farm wife ever dreamed of leaving it out. Number 4, ironing on the farm began not with a switch, but with a fire, because the irons had to be heated on the stove. These were sad irons, solid wedges of cast iron with no cord and no electricity, and she kept several going at once. One pressed the clothes while 2 more heated on the hot stovetop, and she swapped them out the moment the working iron cooled, gripping the handle with a folded pad to save her palm from a burn. The stove had to be stoked and blazing even on the hottest August day, turning the kitchen into a furnace. She tested each iron by holding it near her cheek or touching it with a wet finger, judging the heat by the hiss. Too cool, and it dragged. Too hot, and it scorched a shirt brown. Just keeping the irons ready was a chore that chained her to the stove for hours. Number 3. Then came the ironing itself, and on a farm, it went on and on. Almost everything was ironed in those days, not just the shirts and dresses, but the sheets, the pillowcases, the handkerchiefs, the tea towels, even the underclothes. For a family of 6 or 8, that meant hours bent over the board, pushing a heavy iron across an endless basket of damp cotton, running back and forth to the stove to swap the cooling iron for a hot one. The kitchen sweltered, her arm ached, and the pile never seemed to shrink. A single starched Sunday shirt could take real skill. The collar, the cuffs, the yoke, the sleeves, each pressed just so. Oral histories recall ironing that stretched deep into a second full day, Tuesday given over entirely to the task. It was hot, heavy, monotonous work, the long tale of Washday that refused to end. Number 2. Scattered through the pressing pile was the mending, because worn-out clothes were repaired, never thrown away. As she ironed, the farm wife set aside every shirt with a loose button, every sock worn thin at the heel, every seam pulling apart. A frayed collar was turned, unpicked and flipped so its worn edge hid underneath, and the shirt lived another year. Socks were darned over a wooden egg, the needle weaving new cloth across the hole. Patches went onto knees and elbows, hems were let down as children grew, and buttons were sewn back, one by one. In a house where new clothes were rare and costly, this quiet stitching was what kept a family dressed. Diaries recall evenings spent with a needle by lamplight, finishing the week's repairs. The wash was not truly done until every garment was whole again, ready to face another hard week on the farm. Number 1. And finally, at the very end of it all came the folding, the putting away, and the reckoning of a day well spent. Late Monday evening, often by lamplight, the farm wife folded the clean, pressed laundry into smooth stacks and carried them to the drawers, the shelves, and the beds. Aching, scalded, and bone-tired, she looked at the neat piles of white sheets and mended shirts and knew that the whole cycle would begin again the following Monday and every Monday after that. There were no thanks and no applause, only the quiet satisfaction of a family kept clean and cared for on nothing but her own 2 hands. Oral histories recall women who could barely lift their arms by nightfall, yet took real pride in that final, orderly stack. It was the badge of a good wife and mother, earned in fire and lie and water, one endless wash day at a time. From the water hauled before dawn to the last shirt folded by lamplight, these 25 tasks reveal just how much labor stood behind something we now do with the push of a button. Wash day was not a chore, but a marathon, a test of strength, patience, and pride repeated week after week without rest. The farm women who lived it wasted nothing, complained little, and kept their families clean against every hardship. So the next time your machine hums quietly in the corner, spare a thought for the women who did it all by hand, and share in the comments who in your family remembers a wash day like this.